and we're here today to talk about the new initial RFP that is being released today. It is for the new Washington Bridge design and construction. And as we mentioned last week, we now have 2 finalists that will be working with us over the next 6 months to create proposals for the scope, cost, and timeline for the new bridge. If you recall, DOT previously put out an RFP and some aggressive timelines this summer in hopes that we could expedite this process and deliver a working bridge quickly for the public's use. And as you recall, that strategy was not successful, in part due to those aggressive timelines. But no, we don't want to go backwards. Clearly, we want to make sure no one likes to go back to the drawing board. But if you go back to the drawing board and bring back a better product as a result of that, then I think that that's progress, especially given the level of the urgency involved here. I will tell you, though, that I'm glad we restarted this process because this timeline, we gained valuable insights from the bridge experts, and we were able to locate 4 responsible contractors that could build the bridge, and narrowed it down to 2 nationally recognized contractors to be able to do this work. The 2 finalists are going to work with us to potentially refine this RFP that was released today that the director will speak to, so that we will have a final version that they are both comfortable with by January 24th. And we have set out timelines that are in the RFP, and that's why we're here today, because we're meeting a timeline to actually make public the RFP as it stands today. So we want to make sure that we continue to do the work. We, again, recognize that it has been difficult a year for everyone who relies on or travels that side of the bridge. I'm glad that we were able to quickly, on March 14th of 2024 was the date that we determined that we needed to build a new bridge that would outlast our lifetimes. That's the beginning date on this work, and quickly after that was established that the March 24th date was established. I'm sorry, the March 14th date. We were able to get 6 lanes of traffic. That has helped certainly address the issue, but it's not a permanent solution. So I want Rhode Island to have a new bridge, and we want to make sure it's done as quickly as possible and as safely as possible. Remember, the safety is the top priority. It's built in a way where we can easily and comprehensively monitor its health over its long lifespan, and I believe that we are now headed in the right direction. Last week was a good week until it wasn't a good week, but on this issue we have made progress, and we're happy to be able to report one of the timelines and the benchmarks today. And I'll hand it over to the director to provide more information. Director.
Thank you, Governor. Thanks everyone for being here. As the governor has announced, we continue to move forward. This step is a very positive step in the right direction towards selecting the design-build team to build a new Washington Bridge. We are exactly on track to issue the tentative award to the winning design-build team in early June. And a new request for proposal, RFP, has been delivered to our 2 highly qualified design-build teams to respond to. The issuance of the RFP is the last step in a multi-step and a 3-step process we initiated last summer that began with the request for information, gathering information from 11 different companies on the commercial terms of this project, followed by a request for qualifications that we have successfully concluded, and that has brought us to this point to allow 2 companies, very highly regarded. One company is the #1 bridge building company in the country. The other is the 5th biggest bridge building company in the country, according to Engineering News Record, who will now begin competing head-to-head for the contract to replace the bridge. The new RFP in process. After hearing from the 11 major companies that participated in that, we determined what changes we could make to make the new RFP, the new proposal process, better. It worked. That RFI process worked, and the changes that were recommended have been implemented into not only the previous step, the RFQ process, but into the new RFP. And it's worked in being able to garner 4 of the best companies and 2 of the best that will compete now head-to-head for the contract. The new RFP encourages the use of accelerated construction technology to replace the bridge, examples of which we at DOT have employed just this year on 6 other bridges in the state by building bridges over the weekend. We will employ those same strategies and encourage these companies to use them for the new bridge. It calls for a new bridge with 5 through lanes and a new off-ramp that will be untangling some of the congestion that historically took place at that location. Again, as part of the new RFP, there are changes from the first procurement, the first RFP, that include changes in the procurement. In other words, instead of a single step that we had in the former one, we moved to 3 steps, the RFI, RFQ, and RFP, 2 of which have already been completed. An increase in the stipend. In the last RFP, several companies competing in the final round of the RFP would all have been eligible. Now we have limited that down to 1 company will be eligible for that, and we've increased the stipend amount. Of course, for that stipend, we will get the benefit of the work product and any good ideas that the losing company may have had in their RFP or in their proposal to us, any technical concepts, any proprietary information would become the property of the state of Rhode Island for us to incorporate into the project if we wanted to. Liquidated damages have been adjusted in accordance with the responses from the RFI by the companies. Completion date. The completion date is now going to be determined as part of the competitive process. These companies will be competing in part to see who can get it done quicker. We're going to leave the determination of the date at which they'll complete that and be responsible to complete it as part of that competition. The removal of the substructure is no longer a part of the reconstruction of the bridge project, so we've removed that from the new RFP because, of course, we accelerated that, and we are doing that as part of the existing demolition contract. And we provided for additional opportunities between now and June when we make the selection of the companies for us to have meetings and to confer with the proposers more often and give us more opportunities to exchange ideas and concepts that they're looking to employ and to be able to confer on those. We're on a clear path now to give us highly competitive proposals from 2 of the most highly regarded bridge builders in the country. We fully expect to hit every one of our targets in the RFP date line that we provided as part of the RFP. The timeline going forward from now until the end of January, from now until the end of January, we'll confer with the companies on the contents of the RFP to make sure that all 3 entities, us and the 2 companies, understand precisely how we're going to determine who the winning competitor is and what the responsibilities of the competitors in order to deliver the project are going to be precisely. From the end of January until the beginning of April, the the most interesting work to me is going to be taking place, where these companies have between them a total of 16 consulting companies working with them, and numerous dozens of experts will be employed during that time frame by these companies to create their alternative technical concepts and to begin the process of determining the scope, scale, and design of the new bridge. These companies range in expertise from everything from geotechnical experts to construction technology experts to project management and scheduling experts to structural engineers and architects that will be proposing the various designs. This is when we will begin to get the information from these companies on how they're going to build it, what materials they're going to be building it with, what methodologies they're going to be using, and ultimately by the June timeframe, we will have concrete proposals from them that will say precisely what they are committing to the state of Rhode Island to complete the project, what it's going to look like, how much it's going to cost, and exactly how long it's going to take. Once we've notified the winning company, they'll start work immediately. We've already have indications that these companies are going to be working. They'll probably have 10% of the bridge design already done by the time we award the contract. So they'll hit the ground running. And so as I said, we see now a clear path ahead. And we certainly, as the governor mentioned, want to thank the people of Rhode Island for their patience. But this is an important project to us, and proceeding in a very deliberate fashion is important to us to make sure it's done right. We will deliver a bridge to the state of Rhode Island that's completely safe and will serve Rhode Islanders for the next 100 years or more. And I say 100 years with complete confidence because at least one of the companies is currently working on a bridge that they built themselves 125 years ago. So it can be done, it will be done, and we have the people to do it.
I heard 5 lanes on, hello. That's okay. 5 lanes on a very short stretch of bridge, which will then be feeding into the 3 lanes or the 4 that's there now. So please explain that a little bit. Why are we going to 5 lanes? Where is the off-ramp that you're going to be building? Why did you decide to do that?
Yep.
Do you have any idea what the cost may be at this moment, your best projection? And finally, the concept of an initial RFP is new to me. Have we ever done this before as a state? Has anyone ever done this before where you tell them what you want and then you say, you guys work it out if you think we could make this a better RFP?
So that's not what we're saying with that. No, we have not done it here, but it has been done in other places. We have conferred with some of the experts that the FHWA has that have knowledge of this kind of process. They endorse it and they encourage it. It allows us to confer with the companies to make damn sure that everybody understands the ground rules on which they're going to be competing. That's very important in a project of this scope, that everybody is playing on a level playing field and that the expectations of the state of Rhode Island is clearly defined to the contractors before they proceed in developing the actual plans to which they are committing hundreds of millions of dollars of their own resources to get done on time, on budget. And that is a rather complex scenario to accomplish. So we're making sure right up front everybody understands the ground rules under which we're going to proceed and compete. With regard to the 4 lanes, yeah, okay.
I'm sorry, maybe I
Okay,
misheard.
with regard to the 4 through lanes that you say that they end up on, 4 of the 5 lanes are going through. So there'll be continuity going through. Understand, we've actually, even in this modification that we've made onto a temporary bridge, we've actually decreased the travel time from what it has been traditionally in a westerly direction over the bridge. We're making damn sure that in the design and construction of the new bridge, we incorporate technology and traffic patterns that are going to at least sustain the better traffic movement that we're experiencing now, but make it actually better than it is now. So, in doing that, we will be having 5 lanes on the bridge. 1 will be dedicated to on-ramps and off-ramp, for example, Gano Street, where we will, by doing that, eliminate a lot of the weaving action that creates traffic jams now. Similar to what we're doing in the viaduct project here on 95. Rather than just rebuilding the 12 bridges that existed there before in the same way and the same patterns that they were, we have designed in our building a new pattern of lanes and bridges that will afford the people to move through that, and actually already are. People are already experiencing the improvements that will allow traffic to move through there more efficiently. We'll be doing the same thing on the Washington Bridge. We'll be having a separate lane for on and off ramp. We're creating a new off ramp that does not exist right now from 195 east onto Waterfront Drive in East Providence. As a result of the Henderson Bridge getting more attention and more favorability by commuters once we made the improvements and put a brand new bridge there, we're going to breathe new life into the waterfront area by giving industries that may want to relocate there and do business a better opportunity to get to and from those properties that are currently pretty much laying dormant there right now. So there are going to be positive economic impacts by that. There is going to be, because of the new lane configurations and new approach lane configurations that we'll be making as part of this project, a better flow of traffic through that area so that over the next 100 years it will remain not only safe and strong bridge, but also an efficient one to transport people.
One more question, but I need to follow up to make sure I understand. Yep. The other question was projected cost, but let's stay with what you're talking about. Are you going to have a new off-ramp in 2 directions or just in the new section of the bridge? And based on what you're saying, 5 lanes, is it going to be a wider bridge than what people have known that's now closed? Yes. If so, where are you getting the extra land and space to build a bigger bridge? So
it is going to be wider, but it will still be within the right-of-way that we already own. We're not proposing to buy any additional property, or the need to bridge structure will be wider than the existing bridge, in part to be able to do the kinds of mitigation, traffic mitigation, and corrections to the weaving kind of issues that we have had historically on that bridge, and make it safer.
And the off-ramp, again, only in on the new section of the bridge there'll be a new off-ramp to Waterfront Drive, or are you going to be creating one which wasn't envisioned before on the other
prior
side as
to,
well?
And it was envisioned before. As a matter of fact, we actually, on the previous contracts, already started building that ramp. So, yes, work had already begun on that ramp, so it was envisioned and was planned, and it will be incorporated into this. It precedes the bridge structure itself, that ramp. The other is, of course, the new Gano Street ramp that we'll be building.
I'm so sorry, I just need to understand this section, then I promise to shut up. But you said it was already envisioned, there was already a contract. So are they working currently building a new off-ramp on the eastbound side, and that work will just continue? Or are we all of a sudden looking at a project that went from one direction?
No, we're not suddenly doing anything. What we're doing is continuing in the original studies and recommendations we had to build a new off-ramp in the westerly direction that will precede the bridge structure itself to bring traffic from 195 west down to Waterfront Drive.
That's west, but
East, we're not doing any additional work in the easterly direction. None.
okay, so it's only in one direction.
That's
that you're
correct.
going- Sorry, I missed.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, I know, as you mentioned before, as part of the timeline process that's ultimately up to the contractors as they're shaping out these bids, but it's mentioned that, they could start their work in July, but with the field work, when could that feasibly kind of start, seeing as demolition would be ongoing through potentially end of 2025, early 2026?
So in a design-build kind of project that this is, where the design happens at the same time that initially they're going to be building it, there is, in the first 6 or 9 months of any design-build project, there are startup endeavors that any company has to do before you begin to see a demonstrative presence on the job site itself, such as permitting. There's a certain amount of permitting. Now, we're giving the companies information and geotechnical information that we have companies gathering now prior to the proposal process at DOT that will be afforded to them to accelerate not only the design but also the environmental and permitting process that they'll be going through. So they'll have a fast jump on that, but they'll start that work immediately. The design, the RFP process, part of what these companies are investing literally millions of dollars into prior to being awarded the project. They're investing millions of their own money, employing, as I said, I think a total of 18, between the two, 18 different sub-consulting companies to work on the preliminary, the conceptual design of this bridge. By the end of the RFP, we'll have designs that range between 5 and 10% of completion of the actual design of the bridge from both companies that they're making their own investment into before winning the project. They will then have to take it from that point and continue the design process and begin conferring with and ordering the various components they're going to need to build a bridge. So the fabrication of steel and any precast units that they're going to be using to accelerate the construction of the bridge will begin to take place immediately. Now, that construction and that fabrication isn't happening necessarily on the job site. It's happening off the job site, and it will be delivered. But that will accelerate the time frame in which they'll actually be able to complete the entire bridge project. So it's important work that's happening during that time frame that you pointed out. In addition to that, they will be, of course, hiring the workforce, right, that they need to complete the project, and bringing on and mobilizing the subcontractors. What you will see happening almost immediately is the preparation of the laydown areas and the various equipment that they'll be bringing in, the staging equipment, to be able to construct the bridge. These companies actually have immense resources of equipment and other components that they have used on other major bridge building projects across the country that they'll be bringing into Rhode Island. So that mobilization is massive, and that will also be happening during that time frame. So while there's a 6-month overlap between the completion of the in-water, there are portions of the project that construction will be able to begin on the land-based part of the bridge, and all of these other efforts that I just described to you will be happening during that time frame also, which will further accelerate the time frame that they will be able to complete the bridge in.
Thank you, Director. How do you intend to ride herd over this? Do you intend to bolster staff either during this initial phase or during the construction phase to oversee all of this work?
Yep. We already have the staff in place dedicated to this project, in project management, in construction engineers. We have the personnel in place to be able to deploy and use on this. They have already started their work in the preparation of the proposals and the review of the proposals. They're taking part in that. And we've identified the staff in DOT that will be used for that. In addition to that, we have employed a project consultant to work with us, a private consulting company that will serve as our advisor and will help us review the engineering and the shop drawings of the fabrication and all of that. So we're amassing the workforce necessary to provide the proper level of oversight.
If I may, what is that consulting company?
I'll get you the name of them. They've already started working with us, and we'll get that company to you.
When it comes to those 5 lanes of traffic, will that mean that the new bridge is able to handle a physically heavier load of traffic than the existing one? Like more weight within the vehicle?
Well, let's put it this way. Since the last bridge was built, the codes and the national standards by which we build bridge have all been modified numerous times. And this bridge will be built to equal or surpass those standards that currently exist.
Okay. And so then, if at some point in the lifespan of this new bridge, with the additional lanes and the ability to sustain a heavier weight, the eastbound bridge, sometime within the next 100 years, needs to be substantially repaired or replaced, would that make it easier to bring eastbound traffic onto this new bridge if something similar to what's happening now needs to take place?
Yes.
And then just on looking through the RFP, it looks like there's incentives now for opening lanes of traffic before substantially completing the new bridge. How common is that, and how do you ensure the public, after everything that's happens, that that's going to be safe to have some lanes open while the bridge isn't done?
Well, it's safe because we do it all the time. In the 6 accelerated bridge projects that I described to you, we build bridges on roadways that are currently being used. In one case, the viaduct project, 200,000 vehicles a day going over it, and we built the brand new 12 bridges right under that traffic while maintaining that traffic on those structures. It is very carefully, it is very complex, it's very carefully orchestrated with a lot of forethought and planning, so that the transitions between different construction phases will allow parts of the new structures to be used while the bridge is being completed. It's common practice not only here, not only throughout the United States, but throughout the world. And we are employing those same kind of concepts for years here at DOT.
Hi there. I wanted to ask about the data breach specifically at this time. The timeline that we're seeing from this group is 5 o'clock today. I just wanted to understand what the state's plan is at this point.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the entire
Oh,
question.
you didn't hear me? Okay. I have a Henderson Bridge question. So related to the Henderson Bridge, you mentioned efforts to redevelop that area. I just want to understand what the state's role is as we're seeing East Providence is kind of already starting to work on that area themselves.
So East Providence is absolutely thrilled about the prospects of having that. We started working with East Providence years ago when the concept of the new off-ramp was just formulating. It came pretty much at the recommendation of businesses and property owners and the mayor and elected officials in that area. We've got a couple of projects that are going to be going on that will greatly enhance the economic development of that area of East Providence. not the least of which, one that we're about to embark on, which is the Henderson Bridge Phase 2 project, which will reconfigure the viaduct that takes traffic off the bridge into East Providence in a way that will create additional opportunity for economic growth there too. So that whole area between the Waterfront Drive and the other project that we're doing on the Henderson Bridge Phase 2 will greatly enhance the neighborhoods, and we have already had meetings with the local community on that, and I think we have some coming up also.
A couple quick questions from my colleagues here. Truck tolls on the new bridge, should we expect that?
How the what?
Truck tolls. Should we expect truck tolls on this new bridge?
I'm sorry, did you hear? Truck tolls. Oh, truck tolls. I'll have the governor.
Yeah, that, you know, we're continuing to review the judge, you know, the judge's ruling, and then I plan to be meeting with the Senate President along with the Speaker of the House to determine where we move forward in this session and what direction we'll be taking.
Okay, and I'd like to follow up with the last two series of questions. One is the Henderson Bridge. This may be the first couple of weeks we haven't been jumping lanes and going all over the place in orange cones, and you just said you're going to do it again. So my question here is, do you have something you can give us when we leave here that shows us what you're going to do now, so we have a sense of what phase 2? And then then I'm going to follow up on Gabriella's.
Yeah, so don't worry, we're not going to be doing more construction on the bridge itself. This is when you leave the bridge and you get into East Providence, there's an old viaduct that would take traffic, I think, further east into East Providence. And there's a lot of DOT-owned land in that area from a highway that was never built. It's just vacant land. We will be reconfiguring that roadway, which is currently closed. So we'll be reconfiguring it and reconstructing it in a way that creates additional opportunity for growth and reconnecting the neighborhoods on either side of it, but also allowing for some new economic growth for new businesses, and the city of East Providence is extremely excited about that. So it will not be work that where we're revisiting the work we already did. This is work in addition to. Say it again?
I'm sorry.
Yes, state owns the land, yes.
Can you provide, perhaps, when this is over, a picture of what you have in mind? That would be great.
Absolutely.
Moving back to Gabriella's questions about being able to move traffic over when you start working on the eastbound side. Number one, do you have a projected date for when you plan to do that or may need to do that? And that kind of segues into, you now have monitoring equipment, which I thought was going to kick in December. Has it kicked in? What answers have you gotten from it on any additional stress perhaps on the bridge, any additional damage? And does that affect your potential timeline for having to reconstruct that side?
Good question. So there are a number of things we're doing on the existing bridge, such as not only increasing the number of inspections, but installing monitoring equipment to make sure it stays healthy and viable, but also to give us indications on whether or not trucking companies are abiding by the law. The law says no truck should be passing over our bridges, any of the bridges in Rhode Island, that weigh more than 80,000 pounds. If we do have a truck or a vehicle that goes over the bridge that greatly exceeds that, there is the potential for those kinds of vehicles to inflict additional damage. We know by the studies that we've had done, if all of the people using it and the increase in traffic all abide by the existing lawful weight limitations, that we have it from two independent engineering companies, that existing bridge will be fine to use with the additional traffic for the next few years or a couple of years, however long we need to use it for this purpose. So we know that, right? The monitoring equipment is to monitor and to give us more information on it, more information than we ever needed before, mainly because it's very important to us now, right? So we want to have an increased level of observance of what's going on that bridge, not because we suspect anything bad is happening, but because we want to know in advance if anything happens to it very quickly so we can respond to it very quickly. And that's the purpose of the monitoring equipment. We were expecting to have that in December, but because things like cyclone bombs, weather events with 60-mile-an-hour winds, and other kinds of inclemency that we've had during the last month, the electrical company that is working installing some of the wiring is working off barges in the water to get to the underside of the bridge. Their workers were finding it difficult in some of the more windy days to connect, several hundred volts of electricity together while swaying in the waves. So they had to suspend some of their work there, and the weather has been cooperating, so they've resumed, but it kind of set them back a little bit. So, thank you.
Not answering questions about truck tolls or actual news. How are you? Yeah.
My favorite way to not answer that question.
No, it's just me stepping off a treadmill.